Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. I was only gone for 6 days. Just long enough for the grass to start growing wild around the mailbox, for the trash bin to miss its usual pull to the curb. A business trip to Chicago, some late nights, endless handshakes, a cramped hotel that smelled like lemon disinfectant, and vague regret. When I finally rolled back into our quiet cul-de-sac in Ohio, the sun was setting behind the trees like it had nothing to hide. But something already felt off. Tara didn't meet me at the door. That wasn't too unusual, but the living room was too clean. Like it had been prepped, staged, not lived in. No coffee mugs on the table. No socks half-stuffed into the cushions. Just quiet. She was in the kitchen, standing by the sink, eyes wide like she hadn't expected me for another hour. "You're home early," she said, brushing her hair behind one ear. "Traffic was light," I replied, setting my bag down. "You okay?" She nodded too quickly. "Just tired. It's been a long day." I noticed her laptop open on the kitchen island, a tab pulled up to the HOA newsletter site she'd been working on lately. She'd mentioned helping the board reorganize their layout, that she'd volunteered to co-edit the neighborhood bulletin, that it had great community value, that the newsletter, I asked, gesturing. She closed it gently. "Yeah, sorting through submissions. Nothing exciting." I nodded, but my attention drifted elsewhere, the faint scent of cologne in the air. Not mine. Something spicier, warmer, almost like... She interrupted me. "Want a drink? I've got ginger beer chilling." I took one, mostly to buy myself time. That night, as we lay in bed, she turned her back to me quickly, a little too quickly. Her breathing steadied fast, but it didn't sound like sleep. It sounded like a rehearsed performance. I stared at the ceiling, listening. The fan spun. The silence stretched. At 12:43 a.m., my phone buzzed with a ring notification. Motion detected at the side yard. I pulled it up without thinking. The screen flickered. The side camera caught something brief, grainy, hard to interpret at first. A figure, slipping through the gate. Small, robed, moving fast. I sat up, played it again. It was Tara, wearing the robe I bought her last winter, the one with the white drawstring and embroidered initials. She wasn't carrying anything. Her hair was a little messy. She looked around once, then disappeared through the side yard, into the dark. I didn't wake her. I just set the phone down, stared at the glow of the charger, and tried to make sense of what I'd just seen. The next morning, she made pancakes. Smiled. Asked about the trip. I watched her carefully. She poured syrup like it was any other Sunday. Not a trace of guilt on her face. Not a single crack. And I didn't ask her about the video. Because sometimes the best way to find the truth is to let the lie keep talking. The day after I saw Tara slip through the side yard, I watched her like a stranger might, curious, detached, observing. She didn't flinch once. Made breakfast, folded laundry, even asked me if I wanted to go in on a new kitchen backsplash she'd bookmarked. That was the part that threw me the most. How normal she acted. As if the midnight stroll in a robe never happened. As if there wasn't a ring recording with her looking over her shoulder like she was escaping her own home. I didn't bring it up. Not yet. But I started watching the small things. The towels in the laundry bin had a faint scent I didn't recognize. A spicy cologne again, something woodsy and unfamiliar. Our detergent was unscented. Always had been. I asked if she'd switch brands. She said she hadn't noticed. Her eyes didn't flicker. Her tone stayed smooth. That afternoon, I walked down to the mailbox, half just to clear my head. The usual stack of flyers and HOA bulletins greeted me, along with a postcard wedged between the cracks. Bright blue, a reminder about the upcoming block party. I flipped it over. Handwritten notes circled the RSVP form at the bottom. Not in Tara's handwriting, but familiar. Slanted, quick, slightly dramatic loops. Tom, our next-door neighbor, walked past just then, carrying a set of folding chairs. "Prepping early?" I asked. He grinned. "You know how it is. Hosting duty this year." "Right. You're heading the block party." "Yeah." Tara helped redesign the flyer, he said. "She's got an eye for layout." She mentioned helping with the newsletter. "Oh, she's been a lifesaver," he said, wiping his brow. "Spent a few nights over, helping me get the formatting sorted. That HOA software's a beast." right?" I said, trying to keep my voice level. Tom nodded and kept walking. I watched him disappear into his garage, the automatic door humming closed behind him. That night, I lingered in the kitchen longer than usual. Tara came in wearing slippers, scrolling her phone with one hand, wine glass in the other. "Tom says you've been a big help with the newsletter," I said casually. She looked up, blinked once. "Oh, yeah, we've been trying to simplify the layout." Funny, I didn't know he was into graphic design. She laughed. "He's not. That's why I'm helping." I nodded and poured myself a drink. She sipped her wine, then added, "I know you think it's weird, but honestly, it's just nice to work on something outside of work. Something creative." I didn't say it was weird. She smiled, shrugged. "Well, you had that tone." I looked at her carefully. "What tone?" She didn't answer, just tapped her phone and walked off. The next morning, I saw Tom's garage open around 7:45 a.m. while taking out the trash. His car wasn't in the driveway. The lights were off. I glanced over my shoulder. No one was around. I stepped over the patch of grass between our houses and walked slowly up to the open garage door. It was clean. Too clean. Folding table at the back. A couple of chairs. An unused coffee mug. A laptop plugged in. A fleece throw folded over the back of one seat. The floor was swept, the corners tidy. No dust. I stepped back just as the garage door started moving. I hadn't touched it. It was on a timer. Still, I moved fast, back into my yard, trash bag in hand, heart thudding. That evening, Tara came home later than usual. "Ran late with newsletter stuff?" she offered without me asking. "With Tom." She nodded, brushing her hair back like it was an afterthought. "We were working on the new column order. People keep sending in these ridiculous suggestions." "Like what?" "Someone wants to start a poetry section," she said, rolling her eyes. I smiled faintly. "Romantic." She didn't laugh, just shrugged and walked into the living room. The next morning, while loading the dishwasher, I found a coffee mug tucked behind the toaster. It wasn't ours. Blue ceramic, chipped handle, the kind you find in gas station gift shops. A faint lipstick stain on the rim. Not Tara's color. I held it up. "New mug?" I asked when she came into the kitchen. She looked at it, hesitated a fraction of a second. "Oh yeah, Tom gave me that when I stayed late. I forgot to return it." I sat on the counter, said nothing. Later that day, I texted her while she was out. "Don't forget to return the mug. Wouldn't want anyone thinking you were stealing anything." She replied 20 minutes later with a laughing emoji and noted, "Returning tonight." But she didn't. I checked, and I started watching the garage more closely. I waited until Thursday morning to go back into the garage. It was early, a little before 6. The street was still quiet. A few porch lights flickered in the distance. I'd woken up with that familiar itch behind my ribs again, restless, alert. Tara was in the shower. She always took her time on Thursdays. Some routine I no longer asked about. Said it helped her mentally reset for the day. I slipped out the back, walked the narrow path between our yards, and stopped just short of Tom's driveway. His garage door was closed, but not locked. I'd seen the code once, months ago, when he asked me to grab a paint can for him. My fingers moved before I even finished thinking. The keypad beeped quietly. The door rolled, open a few inches, just enough for me to duck under without triggering the main lift. It looked the same as before. Fold-out table. 2 chairs. Blanket still folded. But there was something new on the far side, a small gift bag tucked beneath the table, peeking out just past the leg of the chair. Blue tissue paper sticking out the top. I stepped closer. Inside was a cologne box. Sleek. Black. With a silver band around it. Expensive, from the brand Tara used to jokingly say she'd get me if I ever gave up flannel and learned to dress like a man. Tucked into the tissue paper was a small envelope, unsealed. My chest tightened. I pulled out the card. It was handwritten. Neat. Short. "Thought you'd like this. The scent's clean, but not boring." "You're not boring." No name signed. But I knew the handwriting. I'd seen it on birthday cards. Grocery lists. "Tara." I put the card back. Folded the paper slowly. Tucked the envelope under the bottle so it wouldn't be obvious it had been read. Then I picked up the box and opened it. The bottle glistened like something sacred. Pristine. Untouched. It deserved to be touched. I unscrewed the cap and dumped the entire contents into the drain by the back wall of the garage. The scent hit the air instantly, sharp, citrusy, bold. Then gone. I filled the bottle halfway, with kitchen cleaner from shelf nearby. Sealed it tight. Wiped my prints from the bottle, returned it to the box, then slid it neatly back into the gift bag. I made sure the tissue paper looked untouched. Nothing moved. Nothing torn. I stood there a moment longer, letting the weight of what I'd just done settle in. Then I walked home, slipped through the back door, and went upstairs. Tara was brushing her hair in the mirror. "You showered already?" she asked, catching my reflection. "Yeah, woke up early." She smiled. "You're getting predictable." I smiled back. Guess that's a good thing. Later that evening, she told me she was heading over to Tom's for one last newsletter draft. So they were finalizing the layout before printing. "You okay with that?" she asked, carefully casual. "Sure," I said. "Give him that mug back while you're at it." She blinked. "What mug?" "The one you forgot to return. The chipped blue one." "Oh yeah, right. I will." I watched her go. She didn't kiss me goodbye. Just adjusted her cardigan, grabbed her phone, and walked out. I waited until the garage door closed across the street. Then I opened the Ring app. No notifications yet. Nothing moving. I stared at the feed for a while. Nothing happened. She came back just after 10. Said Tom's printer jammed, and they lost 20 minutes trying to fix it. I didn't ask how the layout turned out. I didn't ask if she returned the mug. I just said, "You smell like bleach." She froze. "Probably from the towels," she said quickly. "I helped clean up after." I nodded. "Of course." She went upstairs first. I waited 10 minutes before I followed. She was already under the covers, pretending to read. But I saw the corner of her phone still lit beneath the sheets. And I didn't say a word. The following week, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was escalating. Tara wasn't acting different, at least not on the surface. But there was something about her stillness that unnerved me more than if she'd been erratic. She was calm. Too calm. Her smiles felt calibrated. Her schedule predictable to the point of strategy. Tuesday, she went to yoga. Wednesday, she ran errands and worked on the next HOA editorial. Thursday night, she baked cookies for the community board meeting and made a point of leaving 2 extra on a napkin with "For Tom" scribbled in pen. I asked who else was on the board. She said it was mostly email coordination now. "People are busy," she added, without looking up from the mixing bowl. Saturday morning, I checked the Ring app again. No new motion alerts. I checked the history, scrolling back through the last few nights. Same empty footage. Nothing after 10 p.m., no late-night side yard movements. It felt too clean, too perfect, like someone had learned how to move around the camera's blind spots. That night, I set an old smartphone on top of the bathroom cabinet facing the hallway. It had no SIM card, but the camera still worked, and I set it to record just in case. I felt stupid, like I was chasing shadows. But every time Tara said she was going to wrap up HOA business or meet with Tom for a layout brainstorm, I couldn't shake the image of her stepping through the dark in that robe. By Tuesday evening, the battery was dead. The phone had captured 3 hours of nothing but hallway light flickers and one shadow that turned out to be the cat. I deleted the footage. The paranoia was starting to eat at me. Then came the text. It was around noon. Tara had gone to lunch with Shay, her friend from the old neighborhood. I'd always liked Shay, sharp, honest, allergic to fake people. The text popped up while I was working in the garage. "Shay, hey, you okay?" I frowned, confused, and typed back, "Yeah, why?" She replied almost instantly. Tara's been distant. She was cagey today, like dodging questions cagey. I sat with that for a minute, then typed, "What kind of questions?" "Shay, asked if you two were doing okay." She said, "We're both busy," then changed the subject. "Fast. Not normal fast. I got caught fast." "Shay, look, I don't want to cause drama. Just be aware. Something's off." I stared at the screen until the auto lock kicked in. Then I wiped my hands on a rag and walked straight into the kitchen. Tara was sitting at the counter, browsing something on her tablet. "How was lunch?" I asked. "Good," she said. "Shay's going through some stuff." "Yeah." I watched her closely. She texted me. Her posture didn't shift, but her eyes flicked up. She did. Said, "You seemed off." Tara scoffed. "She's dramatic. She probably thinks I'm cheating or something because I didn't gush about the soup." I didn't laugh. "Are you?" She blinked. "Am I what?" "Cheating." She dropped the tablet a little too hard. Wow, that's where we're at now. I didn't respond. She stood up, arms crossed. You've been weird for weeks, Caleb. Staring, asking odd questions, checking the mail like it's got answers. Because something's off. Maybe you're off, she snapped. You disappear for 6 days, come back all stiff and distant. And now I can't talk to a neighbor without being interrogated? You weren't just talking. She paused. What's that supposed to mean? I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshot of the Ring notification from the week before. The midnight footage. Her sneaking through the side yard in a robe. Her face shifted for the first time. I wasn't cheating, she said softly. I was coming back from a soak in Tom's hot tub. You still there? He wasn't there, she added. He let me use it. I'd had a migraine. You were asleep. I needed something to relax. In a robe. She stepped closer. What do you think, Caleb? I'm having some steamy affair with Tom, over community bulletins and cologne gifts. I didn't say anything. Check with him, she said. Go ahead. Ask. I watched her, breathing slow. I already did, I lied. Then you know it's not like that. I stood there in silence, feeling the heat drain out of my anger. The story was stupid, but the kind of stupid you don't make up on the spot unless it's true. Maybe she was telling the truth. Maybe I've been chasing ghosts. That night, we barely spoke. She didn't storm out. She didn't cry. She went about her evening like everything had been settled. But I couldn't shake the feeling that while I'd been chasing shadows, something real had slipped right past me. And for the first time, I realized I might have been looking at the wrong suspect all along. The next few days passed like smoke, there but impossible to hold. I didn't push Tara anymore. I let her believe she'd explained away the midnight stroll, the robe, the proximity to Tom. Maybe she had. Maybe I let it go too easily. But something didn't sit right. She acted like the slate had been wiped clean, as if all the tension that once hung between us had vanished with a single explanation. The problem was the silence felt rehearsed. She wasn't trying to reassure me anymore. She was coasting. Saturday morning, I walked down to the community board kiosk near the park to check the updated flyer schedule. Tara said the next newsletter was delayed a week. She told me they were revamping the format entirely and had decided to skip the April edition. But there it was, freshly posted, full color, printed on cardstock. April HOA highlights, digital and delivered. Her name was listed in the credits under Layout Editor. So was Tom's. I stood there longer than I should have, rereading it, wondering why she'd lie about something so small. Why say it was delayed at all? When I came home, she was in the backyard, trimming the roses. She waved, smiling. You made it to the park already? She asked, like it was a casual comment, not a probe. Yeah, I replied, watching her. Saw the newsletter. Looks good. She blinked. It's not out yet. I mean, we decided not to run this month. Tom thought the layout wasn't quite ready. I tilted my head. Weird. It was posted. She lowered the shears slowly, eyes flicking toward the fence. Really? Cardstock. Your name on it. She looked back at me, smile faltering for the first time. Must have been a misprint. Maybe they ran it by accident. I didn't answer. Just let the silence hang. She busied herself with the shears again, hands moving faster now. That evening, she left for a quick walk. Said she needed fresh air. I offered to come with her. No, she said too quickly. I need to clear my head. You've been tense again lately. I let her go. And this time, I watched the camera feed in real time. At exactly 9:18 p.m., the front door camera lit up. She didn't go for a walk. She walked across the lawn to the neighbor's driveway. 2 houses down, not Tom's, not someone we were close to. A man named Eric. Middle-aged, mostly quiet, worked nights. I watched her knock on his garage door, not the front door, and step back as the door opened partway. She ducked in. The camera angle caught just enough. The garage light clicking on, her silhouette stepping past the threshold, the door closing behind her. I stared at the screen. Eric? I didn't even know they talked. And now she was walking over there after dark, after claiming to go for a solo walk. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. She returned at 10:01. Same hoodie, same pace. Walked in the front door like she'd been nowhere at all. I waited on the couch, phone in hand. She stepped in, took off her shoes, and acted like nothing had happened. Get some good air? I asked, not looking up. She nodded. Yeah. Needed that. Feel better. You ran into anyone? She paused. No. Pretty quiet out there. I looked at her finally. I saw you go to Eric's. Her breath hitched. Just enough. I dropped off something for the neighborhood drive, she said fast. He's collecting canned goods. I stood slowly. We're not running a food drive. Her mouth opened, then closed. I checked. I added. She blinked. Okay. I didn't want to tell you because I was helping him out. His garage light went out, and I told him I'd show him how to replace it. You're helping neighbors with wiring now. I looked it up, she snapped. It's not hard. Histoire de hair. It's not what you think. No, I said. It never is. She turned away then, walked into the kitchen, and I didn't follow. But I didn't go to bed either. I sat in the living room with the lights off, listening to the quiet buzz of the fridge and the faint creak of the house shifting. Tara didn't come out of the bedroom again that night. And I didn't sleep. Because this time, I wasn't chasing ghosts. This time, I was on to something real. By the next morning, something in me had changed. The doubt was gone, replaced by something harder, colder. Not fury, something more focused. I wasn't looking for reassurance anymore. I wasn't hoping to be wrong. I wanted the truth, and I didn't care how I found it. Tara was lying. That part was obvious now. Whether it was Tom, or Eric, or someone else, she'd chosen to slip out of our life piece by piece, behind garage doors and side yards and vague errands. And if she thought I was going to sit quietly while she kept playing make-believe, she didn't know me at all. I left early under the pretense of meeting a client. Instead, I drove down to the community center and asked to speak to someone on the HOA team. The woman behind the desk, Darla, always chatty, lit up when she saw me. Oh, Caleb, right? Tara's husband. I smiled. That's me. She's been such a huge help lately. Can't imagine what we'd do without her. I leaned in. Actually, that's kind of what I'm here about. She's been so involved, I just wanted to double-check something. She tilted her head. Sure. Has she been helping Tom with the newsletter from his place? Darla laughed. Tom? No, he's terrible with tech. All the edits come through email. We moved to virtual editing months ago. She hasn't met with him in person since January. What? I blinked once, kept my voice even. She mentioned working on layout with him. Darla shook her head. Nope, not in person. Trust me, I know. I coordinate the committee logs. Everything goes through me. I thanked her and left with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I sat in the car for a long time, watching people move in and out of the building. Tara hadn't been going to Tom's for edits. So why lie about it? Why plant that story? Unless Tom wasn't the point at all. Unless he was just a decoy. That night, she went out again. Said she had a planning call for an upcoming community meeting and wanted some quiet. I'll walk to the park and take the call there, she said, brushing her hair back like she was late for a photo shoot. Wanted to walk with you. I offered, watching her face. She smiled, light but firm. No, it's fine. It's just a call. I need to focus. After she left, I waited exactly 10 minutes before slipping out the back and cutting through the neighbor's yard. I stayed low, careful, and moved toward the only place that made sense, Tom's garage. His lights were on. I moved around the side of his house, careful not to set off the motion sensor. I'd mapped out its range days ago. From the corner of the hedges, I could just barely see through the side window, small, high, but enough. Why saw stop me cold? The garage was empty. No cars, no table, no blanket, nothing. Just a ladder propped in the corner and a few cardboard boxes along the wall. So where had she been going? I turned around, heart thudding, and caught movement across the street. Eric's place. The lights in his garage blinked on. I ducked low, crossed the lawn, and kept to the shadows. There was no music, no voices, just the quiet hum of something mechanical. I moved around the side of his garage and crouched beside the shrubs. The window was higher, but the curtain didn't cover it all. Then I saw it. A chair, a robe, a glass of wine on the workbench. Tara's robe, the same one from the video weeks ago. It was draped across a stool, carelessly tossed like she used to do at home after a shower. I didn't need to see her face to know she'd been here. I backed away slowly, not making a sound. When I got home, I didn't wait on the couch. I didn't pour a drink. I went into the guest room and opened the drawer where we kept old keys and miscellaneous cords. Her second phone, an old backup, was there. I charged it, turned it on, and scrolled through the messages. Most were old, useless. But then I found a photo folder, recent, not synced. Screenshots, notes, a saved message from someone named T. Not Tom, not Eric, just T. I opened the message. It was dated 2 weeks ago. Garage again, Thursday? Door sticks, but I'll leave it unlocked. No calls this time. Just us. My hands went cold. The number was unregistered. No last name. No image. I copied it down, then deleted the history. When Tara came home, she looked flushed, cheeks pink, hair windswept. Good walk? I asked. She nodded. Yep. Productive. Glad to hear. She kissed me lightly and went upstairs. I stared at her phone on the counter, her wine glass half empty. She still didn't know, but I did, and I was about to know everything. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling while Tara breathed softly beside me. Her body curled in toward mine like nothing in the world had ever been broken. The way she touched my shoulder lightly before drifting off, it wasn't affection. It was habit, a reflex, the kind of routine gesture someone repeats without thinking, without meaning. Her lies had layers, and I'd peeled back enough to see the bones beneath it. What I needed now was closure, not a fight, not a scene, just proof, pure and undeniable. And then silence. I could live with silence. The next morning, I took a personal day. Tara left before I did. Said she was heading to Shay's for a late breakfast, but she didn't mention taking her tablet or the small overnight bag she'd stashed behind the coat rack. She didn't think I'd notice. That's what scared me most. How convinced she was of her own illusion. I waited until her car was halfway down the street, then stepped outside with my phone and my own set of keys. Tom wasn't the one. Eric was closer, but not quite at either. It had to be someone else, and I knew exactly where to start. The number from her old backup phone. It had been bothering me. No social profile, no name, just T. Not a lot to go on, unless you had time and patience. I had both. I cross-checked the area code, looked through the neighborhood directory, scanned emails, and archived HOA rosters until one name kept showing up again and again. Tyler. Tyler R., from 2 blocks down. Lived alone, rarely came to the board meetings, but always sent in late suggestions and layout changes. Tara mentioned him once, months ago. Said he was sweet but awkward, like he didn't know how to talk to people anymore. Widower, I remembered. Quiet. Kept to himself. But his garage had a side entrance. I'd walked past it 100 times. It backed up to the wooded strip behind our row of houses. No ring coverage. No floodlights. Just a single bulb over the back door and enough shadows to disappear into. I parked a block away, walked through the trees, and waited. His car was gone. Work shift or errands, I didn't care. I moved along the edge of the fence line and crouched behind the small utility shed near the garage. The door was unlocked. Inside was warm, lit, familiar. Blanket on a workbench. Wine glasses on a shelf. A photo frame with its back turned to the wall. And on the far table, a hoodie. Terrace. I moved quietly, scanning the room. There were post-its on the pegboard. Names, scribbles, weeks marked with a check. My name was there. Caleb. A line drawn through it. Beside it, Tuesday nights equals clear. Another note. C knows nothing. All good. My throat tightened, but I didn't move. I wasn't shocked anymore. Just furious. On the far end of the bench, there was a small tripod. A phone mount. I stepped over and picked up the phone resting in its cradle. Not locked. Open. A message chain sat on the screen. Tara, sneaking out late tonight. He's asleep early lately. Will text from backyard. Tyler. Door won't be locked. Leave the robe again. I turned the phone off. Left everything where I found it. And walked out the same way I came in. Calm, quiet, precise. When I got home, she wasn't back yet. I sat at the table, opened a bottle of water, and watched the clock. 3 hours passed. At 6:47 p.m., the front door opened. She walked in, carrying a small grocery bag, keys in her hand, humming. Hey, she said casually, like nothing was ending. Hey, she looked at me. You're home early. Didn't feel like work today. She nodded, setting the bag down. I got some fresh pesto. Thought we'd do pasta. You still here. Where were you today? She blinked. Shay's. What? She says hi. Tara hesitated. She wasn't feeling great. I didn't stay long. I stood up. You were at Tyler's. The color drained from her face before she could hide it. What? I went there. I saw everything. Her mouth opened, but the excuses hadn't arrived yet. I don't need you to explain, I added. I already have what I need. She stood still. The grocery bag slowly crinkled in her hand. You followed me? I followed the lies. She looked like she wanted to scream, or cry, or break something. But I didn't give her the chance. I walked past her, calm, focused, because the next move wasn't hers. It was mine. The trick was patience. Tara had lived in her illusion so long. She assumed I'd keep playing the fool. That was my advantage. She thought I was wounded, humiliated, waiting to lash out. She didn't realize I'd already moved past emotion. I didn't want an apology. I wanted an ending. Clean, loud, public. She'd built her betrayal quietly, through backyards and whispered texts. But I'd dismantle it in the middle of the street if I had to. The block party was 4 days away. Tara had been talking about it for weeks. How this year was going to be better organized, how she and a few others were decorating the welcome table, how the lemonade booth needed a fresh banner. Her smile came back when she talked about it, like it was her stage, a fresh chance to show the neighbors she had it all together, that nothing behind the curtain had cracked. And that's exactly why I chose it. The night after I confronted her, we barely spoke. She didn't deny what I said. She didn't confess either. Just floated through the house like a ghost trying to figure out if it was still welcome. I let her. I didn't ask questions. I didn't press her. I needed her to believe she'd dodged the worst of it, that silence meant safety. Meanwhile, I got to work. I reached out to Renee, a neighbor 2 doors down. She was a high school teacher, recently widowed. We'd talked in passing before, mostly yard talk, male mix-ups. But I'd seen the way she looked at me when she thought no one noticed. Kind, respectful, sharp. She deserved better than being alone in a neighborhood that watched Tara parade around with false smiles and wine-fueled PDA charm. So I asked Renee if she was going to the party. She said she wasn't sure, too many memories. I told her I'd save her a seat if she changed her mind. She smiled in a way that said she might. Then I messaged someone else, Tom's ex. She'd moved out months ago after a breakup Tara had once described as messy. I never met her, but I found her through an old HOA thread. Jessica, I sent her a simple message. You might want to come to the block party this weekend. Some unfinished business may need closure. She replied within 5 minutes. I'll be there. Saturday came with sunshine. Neighbors wheeled out grills. Folding tables lined the sidewalks. Music drifted from Bluetooth speakers, and kids darted between chalk drawings and water balloon coolers. I arrived just before noon, dressed simple, clean jeans, button-down shirt. Nothing loud, just steady. Renee met me at the corner of our driveway. You sure you want me walking in with you? She asked. I like that, I said. She slipped her hand through my arm. Firm, warm, confident. We walked down the street together. The timing was perfect. Tara was standing near the lemonade table in her favorite white sundress, sunglasses perched on her head, cup in hand, laughing with 2 other women. She turned when she heard us. I saw the second she processed it. Renee's hand in mine, the ease in our steps, the fact that I wasn't alone and I wasn't hiding. Her face didn't fall right away. It paused, froze, then twitched. Behind her, Tom had just finished setting up a cornhole board. And from behind him, Jessica appeared. I gave her a small nod. She returned it with a sharp, amused smile. Renee leaned in. Ready? She asked. I stepped up to the lemonade table, reached for a plastic cup, and held it high. Glad to finally bring someone who actually respects our neighborhood boundaries, I said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. There was a pause. Then laughter. Honest, explosive, unfiltered. Tara stood frozen. Tom turned pale. Jessica crossed her arms and watched him like a hawk circling fresh roadkill. I took a sip. Calm. Ice cold. Tara turned without a word and walked briskly toward the house. Tom followed her a minute later, face tight. Jessica trailed behind with a grin that didn't fade. Renee looked at me. Subtle, she said. I try. We stayed for hours. Talked. Laughed. Met new neighbors who hadn't known my name until today. By evening, I'd become something else. Not just the guy married to Tara. Not just the man who kept quiet. I was the one who ended the show, with no yelling, no drama. Just timing and truth. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like, and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.